This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
Hey, it's the Hard-Traveling Fanboys, episode 134.
Place to Be Nation listeners, welcome to the Hard-Traveling Fanboys. We are inside the L-shaped studio in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, in luxurious Ho-Ho-Loon Plaza. With me is the man formerly known as Nick Duke, now forever to be known simply as Hoss. How you doing, Hoss?
I'm okay.
That's good to hear. Have a good weekend?
Yeah, it wasn't bad. The weekend wasn't bad. I mean, actually, it was pure and utter dog shit, but nobody wants to hear about that.
I forgot. Truth be told, I forgot about that when I asked. So
That's
I
all right.
Regretted it and tried to shift gears towards the week itself.
Yes.
So
it's all good. It is what it is. Nobody wants
holidays
to hear about that.
are approaching. The kids are getting excited, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Children like things.
Children do like material possessions, so yeah, there's a lot of excitement.
Right.
They like material possessions and food, so, you know.
Yeah. A lot of excitement in the Duke household.
Things are looking up. Yeah. Not really, but.
No, that's neither here nor there, quite frankly. That's for other podcasts.
That's for somebody else.
That's for somebody else, baby. Now, we are here to bring you a transparently phoning it in edition of the longest running weekly episodic comic book podcast in all of Place to Be Nation.
Yeah, it's only going to be continue to be weekly and episodic because, like Greg said, we are phoning it in this week. It's what I'm dubbing the green jacket, gold jacket, who gives a shit edition of the Hard-Traveling Fanboys.
We are simply trying to keep the streak alive because, again, we believe in being transparent. We even believe in being a translucent freak to our audience. And
that's topical.
It is. And so we've had a hellacious time trying to schedule this recording this week. You know, we've had for once it wasn't on my end either. Nick's had a very busy household this week, and he's had southern internet issues. And then I had an out of town engagement today that's delayed this particular recording a little bit. So we're ready to get this thing rolling and just knock it out the door, kick the can down the road. Any and all complaints, I would remind you, ladies and gentlemen, can be sent and will be read at JR's BBQ.
Yep, that's it.
On Twitter.
That's it.
Any praise can be sent to gphillips8652 or Nick Duke 87 on Twitter. So, with all that being said, Nick, what we're going to do this week is we're not going to have a topic per se. I put that in air quotes.
Yeah, quite frankly, we think you, the audience, are tired of having your intelligence insulted with topics and themes.
That's why we're going to give you, the listening audience, what you want. And what you want is an entire episode dedicated simply to the rundown and reading and watching. So with all that said, Nick, what do you say we get things started on the old rundown this week?
Oh, actually, why don't we get things started with the reading and watching as we discussed before we started recording?
That's a great point, Nick. A great point that I would have remembered if I'd paid any attention to it.
Yes, that's true.
So, Nick, what you been reading?
Well, shouldn't we do the jingle thing?
Oh, yeah. Read down and watching. Whoa. Oh, sorry.
Here's a jingle.
All right.
Yes.
Now, so, Nick, what you been reading?
Nothing.
Yes. Well, that's very good.
Well, I need to start reading something, seeing as how we're technically supposed to do a podcast in about 4 days.
Never again.
Because I know you hadn't started it either.
No, I started it, Nick.
Did you really?
I'm 15 pages out of 140-something into
My God, maybe by January we'll be ready to go.
I know. It's not good. I'm not going to lie to you, Nick. It's not looking good. It's not looking great.
God Almighty! Already,
we're gonna see what we're gonna get it. We're gonna get it done. We're gonna get it done.
When are we gonna get it done?
We're gonna read it. We're gonna read it this weekend.
All right, let's see what happens.
Anyway, so no, I haven't read anything other than that, and that's mainly been limited to my trips to the crapper at work. So those have been infrequent lately. So.
Oh, well, you know, what can you do?
Anyhow, okay, let's get to what we've been watching. We've been watching things, right?
We watched a lot of stuff, yeah.
We watched a
Actually, let's save watching for last. Because you know we're going to tie the watching together with the rundown, remember?
Oh, that's right. So what have you been playing, Nick?
Playing. Yeah, I got some playing this week. I finally carved out a little time after having a
other than with yourself.
Other than what was I going to say? Oh, after a podcast recording that went longer than expected this week, I wound up taking an unplanned day off, and so I carved out some time to play the first chapter of the 3-part Spider-Man PS4 DLC that's planned. The first chapter being entitled The Heist, and it is largely a Black Cat focused, probably about, I would say in terms of just the main story, probably about 2 hours of gameplay, and then you've got some side missions as well that are included in that. And really good. Like, I continue to be very impressed by this game from a mechanic standpoint. You know, I've talked before when I reviewed the main game about just how much fun it was to move around the city. That continues to be the case here. And I don't know who wrote this game for Insomniac, but it's an outstanding job by whoever did. They continue to nail the Peter and MJ dynamic, and I love their take on Black Cat. Works very well. I was borderline. Well, not borderline. I'll be honest. I was very aroused while playing this bit of DLC, and I feel like when you're talking about the Black Cat, that's kind of what part of the point is. It's kind of part of the appeal of the character. So, 2 thumbs up for me on the first chapter of Spider-Man PS4 DLC.
I believe the writer whose name you're looking for is Daniel Slott.
Dan Slott. Yes, that was probably him. You're right.
Well, very good, Nick. I'm glad to hear that you're getting aroused by video games again.
Well, you know,
that's
it is what it is, Greg. What do you want me to say?
Well, I don't know what I want you to say, Nick, but right now, I want you to talk about with me what we've been watching this past week.
Wait, we have a different one this week. One we've never done before, to my knowledge.
Listening?
I got listening this week because in the course of about a week, I don't think I talked about it on last week's episode, so maybe it wasn't quite a week, maybe a little bit more. But anyway, I listened to the entire first season of Marvel's scripted podcast, Wolverine: The Long Night.
I thought it sounded like you were about to say of Marvel's pure malt liquor.
No, that would be better. Which, by the way, they make Hellboy whiskey now. That's awesome. But we're
going to have to add drinking into reading, watching,
Oh,
playing, and
please,
listening.
Can we? No, anyway, Marvel's scripted podcast, Wolverine: The Long Night, written by one of my favorite comic writers, Ben Percy, as you know we've talked about. This was originally an effort on Stitcher that was put out on Stitcher Premium, and it was exclusive to that for a while. And then I think they did like a 6-month delay, and then the episode started dropping on free platforms like iTunes. So it's been 1 episode a week. So I waited until almost all the episodes were out so I could binge them all back to back. Pretty good. You know, it's a little bit different than I was expecting because a lot of the trailers, the little audio clips they had put out that they used as audio trailers for the podcast, prominently featured Wolverine speaking in the trailers. And what's interesting about this is a Wolverine story that Wolverine doesn't really take an active role in until near the end of the story. He is largely a side and background character for the vast majority of this. It's a story that features Wolverine on the kind of, you know, on the road again, kind of taking the the David Banner approach from the Incredible Hulk television series, where he's you know, just moving around. You all right?
I'm good.
You can hear the baby monitor, can't you?
Yeah, I can.
You know, we're doing the best we can here. Kids are supposed to be asleep; they're not sleeping. It's just one of those things
that's their prerogative.
It's not their prerogative. I'm a parent, and they should respect my authority and live beneath my booted heel. But
no one respects your authority.
Yeah, it is what it is. In any event, so the podcast kind of treats Wolverine as a background character. It mainly focuses on these two government agents who have come to this small town in Alaska to investigate a grisly series of murders. And also, along the way, they start to realize that a government possession known as Weapon X may have gone, may be up there. So they're trying to find Logan as kind of their side goal while they're also trying to solve these murders. And it's a nice little mystery of, what's going on with these murders. How is Logan involved? There's also a cult that has set up shop near there that worships darkness because there in Alaska, the eclipse is very when the not the eclipse. What's the other word, Greg? You know what I'm looking for. The equinox. When the equinox comes, like in that movie 30 Days of Night, they have the winters I think have like 20 hours of night instead of only 4 hours of daytime or something like that.
Sure.
Anyway, there's a cult up there that worships darkness. All these forces are playing around together. Suffice it to say, 10 episodes, roughly 30 minutes each, so you got about a 5-hour Wolverine narrative story here. Pretty good. Richard Armitage, who you may know from, he played Thorin Oakenshield in the Hobbit trilogy, if any of you guys are Middle-earth fans. He voices Wolverine. I don't know who voices the other characters, but the voice acting, by and large, is pretty well done. The mystery aspect of it isn't quite as well done. I think it's a little forced and a little transparent who the big bad is going to wind up being. But I will say, like I said, Armitage does a really good job. I believe
he was once known as Dick Armitage, right?
Yeah, yes. No, Rick.
It's been changed.
Rick Armitage.
Yes. Now it's Rick.
Rick Armitage.
It used to be Dick Armitage. Yeah.
But anyway, and there's a twist near the end in the last episode that kind of makes you look at the entire show differently, and actually wound up really making me like the show a lot more than I did coming into the last episode. Not that I disliked it before, I was just kind of ambivalent on it, but after the last episode, I have to say, I give this a recommendation. I am much more excited about the second season, as we'll talk about in the rundown, which apparently is going to feature Wolverine as the main character as opposed to a background character. So I'd give this a pretty solid recommendation, at least in terms of there's really nothing else like it in terms of scripted comic book podcasts out there, except for the godfather of the scripted comic book podcast genre, Place to Be Nation Comic Book Theater, Watchmen.
That's right. Place to Be Nation Comic Book Theater, Watchmen, which I believe just won a Saturn Award for excellence in science fiction.
That's a Happy Award.
Oh, yes, that's correct, yes. And actually, we also received a Perry Saturn Award, unfortunately. But those aren't as valuable as they once were, Nick.
No, they are not. That's true.
Well, very good. Can we finally now move on to watching?
We can.
We're ready for watching.
We are. Well, kind of. We're partially ready for watching.
We're partially ready. We see, as part of this week of craziness, we haven't watched all of our shows. We haven't watched all of our stories. I'm one shy, Nick. What are you?
I'm good.
Oh, you've actually watched all. Okay,
Yes.
I'm one show shy. I have not yet conversed with Supergirl.
Mm-hmm.
I spoke to The Rock backstage. He said he was anticipating this kind of reaction. So I'm going to have to do a double shot of Supergirl for next episode. Just didn't work out for me this time, but nonetheless, I'm also super behind on wrestling, for the record. I haven't even watched Raw and SmackDown for this week. Well, I watched part of Raw. I fell asleep and I've been sick, you see, and it's been difficult to stay awake. So, in any event, let's get cracking on our C-Dub shows, shall we?
Mm-hmm.
We start the week out with an episode of Arrow, and Arrow this time around continued the tale of Oliver Queen behind bars as he is trying to figure out information about Ricardo Diaz, what his plans are, where he's located, how he can be stopped. He and his associates, the Longbow Hunters. So Oliver is trying to extract this information by any means possible from Brick, who seemingly has information. And Brick informs him that there is an individual in the prison known as the Demon who is keeping this information and is the link to Ricardo Diaz on the outside.
It's the little bitchy guy.
Yes, of course. Absolutely. 100%.
Yes. No
question. That guy is completely untrustworthy. And is definitely the Diaz link. But nonetheless, it's been a harrowing journey for Oliver, and that continues to be the strength of the show is all of the stuff in the prison. In this episode, he gets thrown into a makeshift fight club as he has to take on Derek Sampson, played by Cody Rhodes, the reigning IWGP United States champion, Cody Rhodes. And they have a really, really nice fight scene, Nick, that I thought was kind of the highlight of the episode for me. Just a great fight scene here, classic Arrow. And meanwhile, we get a Lila and Diggle subplot where they go on a mission together to try and seemingly to try and get some information about some shady dealings. But there's more going on than just that, and Lila and Diggle have some issues in that regard. And also, Felicity enlists the help of Samantha Watson, the FBI agent that Nick and I have been critical of in the past. And thankfully, she's a one and done. So she has been written off the show, and I'll say no more on that regard.
Hopefully she's been written off the show.
Yes, she was moving out of town. She's going back to D.C., and I for one won't miss her, Nick.
No, nor will I.
She gone. And also Felicity is showing a brand new side of herself. She is now completely ruthless when it comes to her mission to take down Diaz and hopefully to free Oliver, as she and Wild Dog have kidnapped one of the longbow hunters, seemingly with the intention of torturing her to get information out of her about what Diaz has planned. So a lot going on in this episode, Nick, a lot of subplots, but another strong episode of Arrow.
Yeah, I would completely agree. This whole prison subplot has wound up being just a shot in the arm for the show.
Yes.
Not that it necessarily needed it, because you and I both mostly liked last season. It wasn't as good as season 5, but it was still a really good season. And this is just, we are off to such a strong start here. I didn't think the Lila and Diggle stuff was all that interesting, honestly. It kind of felt forced, like just to give them something to do, because we kind of haven't really focused on Diggle.
I think if there's one one of the criticisms that I could make about this episode is they've done the Diggle and Lila story so many times now, where Lila lies to him about something, he gets upset about her holding information from him. They've done that seemingly 4 or 5 times now on the course of the show, so it's kind of old hat. Although I did enjoy the infiltration scene of them going into the art dealer's place. Yeah, and then also, my other complaint is all my complaints about this episode were related to that subplot, because I also thought it was Curtis at his most annoying. But. Yeah,
that's true, and which is weird, because to this point in the season, they haven't really given Curtis a lot to do, so it felt like they forced the subplot in just to get these underutilized characters more to do. But I would argue, outside of Diggle, we don't really clamor for more Lila. We don't really clamor for more Curtis.
No.
I
don't think Curtis has been necessary on the show for a long time.
Right.
At this point.
I think that one of the strengths of the season to this point has been the writers recognizing that we really just want to get back to classic Team Arrow. So that's why the vast majority of the season so far has been focused on Oliver and Felicity. Yep. Those have been the two driving forces of this season, and it's better for it. One other interesting thing, did we have a single flash forward in this episode?
No flash forwards in this one.
No flash forwards and no new Green Arrows. That's two major threads that the show hasn't touched on in a little bit, which is interesting. But all that being said, another outstanding episode.
The Felicity and Oliver stuff, which is kind of the anchor of the show right now. I thought both of those subplots were very effective, and Diaz continues to be an effective villain, even if it becomes more and more clear he's going to be first half villain, I think. I don't think he's going to last the whole season this time.
No,
but maybe I'm wrong.
I don't think so either. I think Diaz is the first half villain. He is the prison storyline villain, and then once the prison storyline concludes, however that concludes, they'll move on to something else.
Very good. We also had a new episode of Legends of Tomorrow, the second, I believe, or third? Second?
Second
Episode of the season, featuring a trip to the Salem witch trials of the olden times. And John Constantine joins the team officially here as a legend, or as an advisor to the legends, I should say. He doesn't want to be known as a legend, as he is running from some demons of his own and keeping some secrets from the rest of the team. And they have to go back and take on, in typical Legends fashion, a literal fairy godmother that is escaped from hell and is possessing people and kind of doing their bidding. And in this case, she's possessed the girl from the or she's been tethered to a girl from the Puritan times, and it's quite a ridiculous scenario that arises, complete with songs, dances, just a Ray Palmer being Ray Palmer, and another great episode from the Legends, Nick.
Absolutely, this show continues to be the most unique thing on the CW in terms of the superhero offerings. There is no other show quite like Legends. It does things that no other show can do, and this episode is just another example of that. The only aspect of this episode that has me a little trepidatious is I don't really want to see Nate leave the ship, and I think they are making a mistake with that dynamic. I don't really understand what the point of that is. The ship is not too crowded at this point. I don't think you would have a problem writing him and Constantine together. In fact, I think that would be an interesting dynamic to have those two on the ship together.
And you can't lose. I really don't want to lose the Ray and Nate dynamic. They're so great together as like goofy college friends almost, right, where they have such a great dynamic. I don't want to lose that, and I hope we don't. But it's just such a great show, so much fun. Everybody's dynamic is so good with each other. Constantine has fit in perfectly so far, particularly him continually annoying Heatwave Mick Rory. So that continues to be a good addition to the show. So yeah, Legends delivers every week. It's probably maybe the most consistent show over the last 3 seasons across the CW. So good stuff here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Flash. The Flash introduced a major new concept into this season, into the Flash universe, of meta technology. In other words, technology that has been granted supernatural powers of some kind as a direct result of Excess's interference at the end of last season with the Enlightenment at the hands of the Thinker. So basically, we have in this episode a blogger who has a phone that has been given this meta-human technology that, and in this case, the phone has the ability to send coded messages to people that will get them to do its bidding.
Do they ever actually show how this works? Because that's one thing I wonder about this meta tech concept. How would people know that their technology could then do these things?
All that we saw at the beginning of this episode, this girl was shooting herself in the phone, like doing a selfie video, and she looks at the phone and she goes, "Oh my god!" It's like, I guess it's glowing or something, but I don't know how she would have learned.
Right. So like, what does the phone do? Like type out on the screen, "Hey, just so you know, now I can make people do stuff if you write headlines." Like, how would you know that?
It was a little not well explained at all. And I was never really clear on how the whole thing, because at first I thought, okay, it's people that are reading her blog, but then it was like, well, how come some people are reacting to it and other people aren't? Then it was like, oh, well, she has to send the message to someone. I don't know. Like,
it was a little inconsistent.
It was strange, yeah. But as has been the case this season, I think see if you can make sense out of what I'm about to say here, Nick. I thought the plot of this one was not very good to me, but the character interactions were so good that it made up for it.
I think what you're saying is the villain of the week formula for Flash has kind of suffered a lot this year.
Yeah.
Thus far. But the interactions between primarily Iris, Barry, and Nora, as well as now the introduction of Sherlock. God almighty. And his dynamic with Ralph.
Yep.
Those things are really carrying the show at this point. They got to get the cicada thing going because I'm already. Oh, dude, I'm done. I'm done with it already.
I have seen enough of Chris Klein trying to emote.
Yep, me too. me too. Like when he was stumbling around the house, making Chris Klein noises. I was like, okay, can we just whatever you're gonna do with this character in the next 4 to 5 episodes? Let's just get through this and move on to something else.
Is stumble through the house making JR noises.
Now that would be another thing.
That would be awesome. But no, so that stuff's not really working for me. But the character dynamics were great. I cannot stress enough how much I love seeing Barry Allen actually smile and have fun in episodes because it feels like forever since we've gotten that on a consistent basis where he's in comedic where Barry is in comedic situations as opposed to the characters around him. So I thought that was really fun because I think that's one of the strengths of the show. The strengths of Grant Gustin is showing that side of Barry. So I enjoyed the whole softball game and
the infomercial softball game.
Yes, infomercial softball.
Which I know he can't use his super speed, but shouldn't he be able? Shouldn't his powers enable him to see the ball at a slower speed so he could just catch it and make it look normal?
Yeah, you would think. But on the other hand, he's also a horrible athlete, as it's been established, so maybe his natural lack of athleticism just comes into play there. I don't know. But no, it was fun. I mean, I enjoyed all that stuff, the character dynamics. Sherlock. At this point, the show just cannot operate without a Wells. I've determined. So, and really, the show is getting by without Joe, too. Because Joe has had almost no presence on the show.
Right, because of
due to medical issues.
Jesse Martin's physical, yeah.
Right. So without the heart of the show, they're having to rely a lot on the soul of the show, I guess you will, the humor of the show. And there was no Cisco in this one either. That was odd.
Oh, yeah. Where was he?
I don't remember. There was some throwaway line at the beginning of the episode about Cisco's busy doing something, but that was odd that he wasn't on the episode. So we'll see where that all goes. But anyway, that was The Flash. And then Black Lightning followed The Flash and gives us the next chapter in this the Book of Consequences, I believe it's called, right, Nick?
Yes.
As the shocking developments of last episode, which involved the arrest of Tobias Hoyle, are kind of followed up here. And we see the fallout of that, the fallout of Jefferson's revelation to his friend, the police chief. We also see the fallout of Anissa's recent actions trying to help the free clinic and the church, and how all of it's kind of building and perhaps backfiring. And another character taken off the board from last season as well in this episode. I thought it was another really strong episode for Black Lightning. I thought this was even a tick better than last week's episode for me. Thought all character interactions were strong. The episode really made me feel emotion over the course of it because I wanted Jefferson to bitch slap that principal.
Yes.
At one point, the principal is instantly the number one heel on the show for me, even over Tobias at this point.
Yeah, because the Tobias at least is charismatic. I'm not sure I understood what was to the point of Tobias getting arrested again.
So Tobias got arrested because they thought they could link him.
But the implication I got from the episode was that Tobias wanted to get arrested. So why did he want to get arrested?
I don't think that he did want to get arrested. I think that I think that's what they were speculating amongst themselves, that Tobias was playing them, basically. But I actually, as I think back on it, I believe they referenced the fact that by getting arrested and then being set free, that it would basically put him back in the public eye and exonerate him once and for all, essentially, in the eyes of the public, because he's been wrongfully imprisoned again, and almost make him a hero to people because he got wrongly accused of something and released, I guess.
I don't know.
So, so that all took place, and then and then of course the inner family dynamics continue to evolve. Jennifer is now associating with what's his name again, Khalil again. So we'll see where all that goes. I guess she doesn't know about him killing that dude last episode.
No, I would assume that she does not.
Yeah,
and she's doing so because she's mad at her dad. She's like, "I'll get back at my dad by trying to kill myself."
Well, we all show our affections in different ways,
I suppose.
And but yeah, I thought it was another really good episode. I love the feel of this show. The acting, the presentation is very strong in this show, and hopefully they'll be able to continue it the rest of the season.
Indeed.
All right, now Nick, I understand you watched Supergirl.
I did watch Supergirl. Not as good as last week's episode, but still a fine episode of Supergirl. Kind of, they pick up trying to advance the Kara has kryptonite poisoning storyline where she's in this containment suit, and the containment suit only has so much energy. It is trying to filter the kryptonite out of her bloodstream, but she keeps wanting to go and do superheroic things, so she and Alex are mad at each other and all that. This episode also sees the introduction of this show's version of Manchester Black, which is interesting because he has nothing really in common with the version of Manchester Black that I'm aware of, other than the fact that his name is in fact Manchester Black.
Manchester Black.
And he's British. He does not seem to be a telepath. He does not seem to be a villain. In fact, they introduce him here as something of a cautious ally to the Martian Manhunter. So that's all interesting. Yeah, pretty solid episode. I don't want to get too heavy into the plot details just because, you haven't seen it yet, but, I like the episode overall. I continue to like this episode of Supergirl fairly well.
Very good. Well, let's rank them of the ones that we've watched. I reckon I'll go first as I haven't watched all of them. And I'll start at the top, and I'll go with, let's say Arrow at number 1, Legends at number 2, and The Flash at number 3. And have I watched any other ones? Black Lightning at 4. No, let's move Black Lightning to 3 and move Flash to 4.
All right, I'll go Arrow at 1, Legends at 2, Flash at 3, Supergirl at 4, Black Lightning at 5. Very
good. Now, what else have we watched this past week?
Oh yeah, you had something else you were gonna talk about.
Oh yes, a couple things actually. So I have watched just recently the most recent 2 episodes 3 and 4 of Titans on the DC Universe app. Watched it alongside host of the Sunday Groove, David Sunday. Check out his new podcast alongside Andy Helene. Should be on the feed now. And we watched both of the most recent episodes of Titans, shocking ourselves at how much we've been enjoying watching this show. I will say episode 3 to me was a bit of a step back for the show in terms of it was a little slow, a little boring to me at times. I wasn't as... There was some good in there. It was a lot of flashbacks to Dick Grayson's childhood, but for some reason they're very hesitant to actually use Bruce Wayne as a character in the show. So it's more like shots of him from behind or shadowy appearances from him. You don't really get interactions with him and Dick, and quite honestly, I felt during the episode it would have been better served to actually have a conversation between those two characters to kind of get the point across. And instead, they were using what do you call them? I'm blanking right now, Nick. social services worker to talk to Dick as a kid, basically after his parents had died, and we do get to see his parents, that right immediate aftermath of his parents dying. So there's a lot of cool flashback stuff, and I liked that. Although I wanted a little more of an active Bruce and Alfred presence, maybe. The stuff in present day it was fine. We get to see Starfire meet Raven for the first time. And the continuing progression of the super creepy family. I think they're called the Nuclear Family. Mm-hmm. They're ridiculously creepy because of how 1950s they act at almost all times, except when they're murdering people. Very little violence to speak of in this episode, except for one very toasty scene involving Starfire. And otherwise, much about developing the plot, building for the future. But again, kind of a dull episode in a way. And then we get to episode 4, written by Jeff Johns, introducing the Doom Patrol. And this was, by a wide margin, the best episode yet of Titans. Nick, dare I say it, this was a legitimately great episode of television. This was I don't know much at all about the Doom Patrol. I've only encountered them a small handful of times in the comics and crossover events and things like that. I'm aware a little bit of the character concepts, I think, of the main cast. I've never read a Doom Patrol comic or ongoing or anything like that. This episode made me want to go on DC Universe and read whatever Doom Patrol material is on there because, and in fact, I think I have the first trade of Grant Morrison's Doom Patrol from the 80s, I guess it was, and it really made me want to go and read that because I was blown away by how good this episode was. Brendan Fraser, who beat the Scorpion King, as you remember, Nick.
He did. He did beat the Scorpion King.
He's amazing as Robotman, as I call him. Robot Man, as others call him. And, of course, Negative Man is also amazing in this. Elastigirl is amazing in this. It was funny. It was charming. It was tragic at times. It was a great, great episode. I can't say enough about it. If you've not been sold on Titans to this point, ladies and gentlemen, or if you are firing up the DC Universe app and you have to pick an episode to watch to see if it's for you, this is the one to watch because it was awesome. If nothing else, it will get you fired up for the Doom Patrol show that's coming next year.
Good to hear.
And finally, let's hit probably the maybe the most talked about episode of comic book television in the last calendar week. And that would be the final, quote, underscore, bold, italic, circled,
air quotes,
and ultimately strike through episode of Rick Grimes on The Walking Dead.
Spoilers, by the way.
Oh, yes. Spoilers. Spoilers. I'm not going to go plot point by plot point. Don't worry. I don't want to do a summary of the episode. But there's really no way to talk about this controversy without talking about why it's controversial. So, this episode, again, the final purported to be the final episode of Andrew Lincoln as Rick Grimes. Mm-hmm. And so, the episode itself, largely very, very good. As has been the case this season, the pacing was good, the script was good, the dialogue was good. Particularly, we see the return of Shane, played by John Bernthal, and that was, to me, the strongest part of this episode. It was Rick and Shane having a conversation in Rick's head beyond the grave, as Shane is there at the scene of the very first scene where we encounter them in The Walking Dead. And yet Shane is recounting all the things that have happened since then and kind of coming at it from the standpoint of after knowing that Rick killed him, knowing how things went. And he appears to be trying to motivate Rick to get angry, to get motivated and angry, to motivate him to survive, and to get him pissed off, to motivate him to get his job done. So that was great. We see Herschel again, which was pretty funny, honestly, because it's literally Herschel from season 2 pointing out at a pasture, and anyone that's watched The Walking Dead knows that that's pretty much what Herschel did in season 2, was look at pastures and talk to Rick about the pastures. And but it was great to see Scott Wilson again on the screen. He just has a warmth to his character that's awesome. And then it was weird because Rick's visited by Sasha, and I think that's another thing that has thrown people off at this episode, because Sasha and Rick don't really have a bond and never really did. So that was a little odd, but it was still a good scene, and she's a great actress. But the big controversy here is that Rick Grimes doesn't die in this episode. There is the illusion of death. They even give him a death line where he says the whole episode he keeps telling people he's looking for his family. He's looking for his family. He's got to find his family. And then at the end, he looks at Daryl, who's trying to help him, and he looks across the bridge at all these people that are in, the people that are Mag and all the rest of them, and he says, "I found them." And then he shoots this thing of dynamite, and it blows up the bridge and knocks all the walkers, the horde of walkers, down into the water. Daryl cries, and Michonne cries, and Maggie cries. But lo and behold, Rick survived. He washes up on shore, and Jadis, a.k.a. Ann, grabs him and offers him up as a, quote, B, as opposed to an A, to the helicopter people. And the helicopter people arrive, and they fly Rick and Jadis out. Jadis promises him that they're going to save him. And it looked like a scene that should have had, like, maybe Willem Dafoe and Charlie Sheen, maybe in the jungles of Vietnam, as Rolling Stones Paint It Black plays in the background or something.
I have a question. What is implied to be the physical distance between where the bridge exploded and where the helicopter picks Rick up at?
I could not tell you, to be quite honest with you. I have no idea. No way of knowing. I'm
just wondering, because in a world where no other major transport technology exists, is it not kind of silly that everybody who lives around there, all those communities, will not have heard the helicopter come in or notice some sort of disturbance?
Well, quite frankly, Nick, I don't know what to tell you.
Just
Scott Gimple wanted his helicopter.
They got it. Fucking Scott Gimple. Listen.
So, hey, look.
You go ahead. You got more to say before I
do. I thought the episode was overall. Oh, and the other thing is, the other controversy here is the framing, the premise, the gimmick moving forward on the show is that there is a flash forward, not an Arrow style flash forward where it's going back and forth, but literally at the end of the episode, after we see Rick fly off in the helicopter and we see Daryl solemnly walk off into the woods, we flash forward 6 years into the future. And we know it's 6 years in the future because we see an appearance by a 10-year-old as opposed to a 4-year-old, Judith Grimes, as she shows up, and she's got Michonne's sword, she's got her dad's pistol, and she's got Carl's hat. And she's grown up into a bigger ass kicker than she was as a little ass kicker. So I know for a lot of people that might not be anything appealing to them. I was kind of all in on Badass Judith. So I'm curious to see where it goes. In that regard, I think there's good things and bad things about the flash forward. I think seeing Judith not be a mute toddler is going to be a good thing. And potentially a chance to right some of their wrongs with the Rick and Carl characters over the years. However, I do think it robs us of the ability to see the effects, the immediate effects that Rick's death would have on the group. You would think it would be much more far-reaching than the effects that the deaths of characters like Abraham and Sasha had on the group. So I wanted to see Daryl deal with this. I wanted to see Michonne deal with this, and Maggie and the rest of them. And instead, I feel like they're kind of skipping that step to do a Walking Dead trope of kind of off-screen evolutions of characters rather than having to show us them going through those changes. So,
because if they want characters to act a certain way, they're too lazy to write those characters into those situations. They just hit a magic button off screen, and well, now these characters act like completely different people.
Right. It is compelling. It is interesting, and it's an interesting direction. But I think it would be much more. It would be more so, or it would be less. There would be less controversy about it if The Walking Dead hadn't made such a reputation out of off-screen character changes. So that's what I'm a little worried about. That said, I am intrigued. I'm going to continue watching, but yeah. So it was an interesting cop out to not kill Rick, because even story wise, it would have made more sense to kill him. But instead, they had to set up these. What we'll get to a little bit later. They had to set up the future for Rick.
Oh God.
And I thought the storyline wise, the only two options in that episode would have been either to kill him or for him to reunite with everybody, and that would complete his story. As it is, there's nothing left to tell with Rick. And yet they're going to do it.
Oh, but there is, Greg. Does this not feel like another example of audience manipulation on the part of Scott Gimple?
Yeah. I think so, to a degree. Except it seems like largely this is an audience manipulation that people have been much more positive to than the audience manipulations in the past. Because they're getting what they think they want, instead of giving the audience what it needs.
Right.
And what the audience needs is a dead Rick.
What the audience needs is a show that doesn't resort so much to manipulation and bait and switches constantly, and a show that is not afraid to write its characters in the direction they want to write them, as opposed to just using magic off-screen character development. Like, I understand you're saying this season has been better, but I gotta be honest, when I read the results, essentially, like Raw, when I read the Walking Dead results for the week, it just reinforced everything I had thought about not wanting to watch this season. Like, it seems like Scott Gimple has learned nothing. I believe you that Angela Kang has improved a lot of things, but as I said a few weeks ago, how much can you really improve when you're having to operate under the auspices of a Scott Gimple overseen, quote, Walking Dead universe, which is totally a thing people want in 2018.
Yeah.
And we'll discuss that more in the back half of the podcast.
Yes. Yeah, Again, I enjoyed the episode overall. There was a lot of weird things, a lot of things that weren't necessary, and it was frustrating. I wasn't shocked that they didn't kill Rick, to be honest. I kind of thought they weren't, but it doesn't change the fact that it's yet another fake death on the show where people think somebody's dead and they're not, which happens all the time.
And also, after all the talk of like, oh, these are Rick's final episodes on The Walking Dead. Do you actually believe that for a second?
No.
Okay.
No, because I think that the movies are going to premiere, and they probably won't do as well as they think they're going to do in the ratings, and then they'll, or even so, the last movie will have him reuniting with everybody, and then he'll be back on the show. Right. He's probably just taking a break, and if he's not, then it's still not going to have the same impact that it would have had if they had just done it now. So I don't know, but it wasn't all that bad. It wasn't. It was. There's enough intrigue there to go forward and see where it's heading. It does look like you'll be interested to know that based on the preview for the upcoming episodes, they're showing Eugene actually actively taking out walkers with knives. So perhaps Eugene's finally grown him some testicles.
I don't care. There you are.
Nonetheless, Nick, it persists.
It does.
So will I.
Yeah, so will you. You fool me once, shame on me.
Nick,
fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me thrice, shame on me. Fool me four times, shame on me.
Here's my counter to that, Nick. How many years have we been watching Raw?
Yes, but at least we do so because when we started watching Raw, we were young and stupid, and now we do so somehow some bizarre sense of tradition or loyalty. We developed Walking Dead when we were adults. We should be able to put it away like adults.
Nonetheless, with all that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we must take a break, as when we return from the other side, or on the other side even, we will have for you reading and watching, finally.
No.
Oh, that's right. We already did that. No, we'll have the rundown. Finally, we'll have something. I'm struggling to get through this one, folks. My nose is running and my chest is congested. But we'll get it. We've got the rundown coming up right after this.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
PlayStation Nation's Justin Rosero and Chad Campbell here, and we want to let you know that we have a ton of great podcasts available to you on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and PlayStation.com, and we now offer them to you on 2 great feeds. On the PlayStation Wrestling feed, we bring you the Mothership, the Place to Be podcast, Main Event, Survey Says, Wrestling Warzone, a Monday Night Wars podcast retrospective, No Holds Barred, Jeff Learns Wrestling, and our monthly pay-per-view reaction shows. On top of that, we're also dipping into the vault, re-releasing the entire catalog of where the big boys play for your enjoyment. And in addition to these full-length shows, we also deliver special network pod blasts on topics old and new.
The Place to Be Nation Pop feed is loaded with great content, offering such tremendous shows covering the land of pop culture, such as Geek and Sassy, Talkin' Pop, the Glenn Butler Podcast Hour Spectacular, Sunday Groove, PTB in Play, Freak Out Drive-In, Songs with Friends, Looking Forward, Looking Back, and Lucha Undead, as well as a veritable podcast heaven for comics fans with the Hard-Traveling Fanboys, Sellers Points, Conversation Comics, DC Post-Crisis Management, Marvel Age, and Marvel Age Masterclass, plus weekly pod blasts that cover the gamut of comic topics. The feed is also filled with insightful sports content, including the NBA team, This Week in the NFL, and more.
And you can find all these current shows, plus archives of our past podcasts, including The Kevin Kelly Show, as well by subscribing to both feeds on iTunes. And while there, be sure to rate and leave feedback as well. All of these shows, plus others available at PlayStation.com. We cover pro wrestling, sports, movies, comics, in-depth stretch projects, and more. Be sure to support our site by using PlayStation.com/Amazon while doing your online shopping. And download our free PTB Vintage Vault Refresh ebooks via the links on our site. We also want to thank our friends at Boneheads Wing Bar, ProWrestlingOnly.com, and TheHistoryOfWrestling.com. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Tumblr as well. PlayStation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
And we're back. What a great set of advertisements for all the great shows here at Place to Be Nation, involving everyone and all their great stuff and things that are going on. And it's all good stuff, most of it anyway, and probably all of it, in fact. But we're here too. And damn it, we're going to get through this episode. We're going to finish this episode. And I can't think of anything else to do, Nick, but to go into our look at the weekly news and notes in the world of comics, right, Nick?
Yep.
It's a segment that we like to call a rundown.
Welcome to the rundown, where we talk some comic news. Welcome to the rundown, where we talk about movies too.
Well, as we mentioned just before the break, Rick Grimes did not pass away on The Walking Dead.
Stupid.
Rick Grimes lives.
Stupid.
And soon, according to the
This is the dumbest fucking thing,
bigwigs
Greg.
at AMC, he will live on in movie form.
Oh, God.
Because AMC announced a series of spin-off films for the Rick Grimes character to be overseen by former showrunner turned Chief Creative Officer Scott M. Gimple.
Oh, boy.
Begin production in 2019. It says here, the first film will explore the story of where Rick is taken and what he faces in a new corner of the zombie apocalypse. Now, Nick, scale of 1 to 10, how interested are you in these Walking Dead Rick movies?
0.
Well, there you have it.
If I'm not interested in watching Daryl and Eugene do stuff anymore, I sure as shit am not going to watch a Rick and Jadis movie, which is essentially what this is going to be.
Rick and Jade. Is that anything like Rick and Bubba?
No, it's probably worse than Rick and Bubba.
No, nothing's worse than Rick and Bubba.
That's true. Jadis doesn't have offensive personal politics about her.
Probably.
That I know of.
Yeah, we don't really know.
Yeah. Now, if it were John Boy and Billy, that'd be a different thing. Because don't forget,
John Boy and Billy have their positive side.
John Boy and Billy gave us a very Childers Christmas.
That's right. And Childers Trek. Captain's log. Reckon about 4:00. Anyway, we also have gotten the latest update on HBO's Watchmen series.
Oh, that's it. You didn't. What's your interest in the Rick trilogy? We didn't spend enough time on that.
Oh, I don't have any interest in it except to learn more about the helicopter people because I am intrigued by what their gimmick is. I thought the past episode did raise an interesting question of whether they're not quite as hostile as I initially thought based on how the season was building. It introduced a little gray area because they seemed very interested in the possibility of saving someone's life. So I'm curious to see what their deal is. But I don't have any interest from a Rick Grimes perspective. I don't care about him. And I suspect that when he gets to this new place, these people are soon going to be telling him what a good man he is.
Probably so. The idea of a solo Rick project is so stupid. Like, people love The Walking Dead because of the ensemble, not because of one character. And not because of zombies. And so taking one character and putting them in an entirely new setting, I don't get it, Greg. I don't get it, Big Dan.
Get it, Big Dan. Well, one thing that we both get is Watchmen, one of the great works of fiction in the 20th century. And it is being brought, or a sequel of it is being brought to HBO at the hands of your favorite writer, Nick, Damon Lindelof.
Mm-hmm.
And this series on HBO, Watchmen, apparently takes place decades after the events of the original comic book series. And they just added Jeremy Irons to be playing Ozymandias, an older Ozymandias. Your thoughts on this casting move, Nicholas?
That's actually a pretty great casting move, I'm not going to lie. Like, it was speculated whenever Jeremy Irons was circling the project, that's who he would be playing, and now this confirmation. Against my better judgment, I'm probably going to watch this.
Yes.
But I need to maintain my current level of expectation for it, because I do not wish to be burnt by Damon Lindelof again.
Yes. It's never good
when I say that, let me give the Tim Capel disclaimer. I have not seen The Leftovers.
You have not conversed with The Leftovers.
I have not conversed with The Leftovers. I did talk with Lost and Prometheus earlier in the day, and they were what they were.
Now, Prometheus is not that bad. You're overly harsh on Prometheus.
You're overly soft on Prometheus.
I'm overly soft a lot of the time, Nick.
I know that.
At least I was until I got my hands on our new sponsor,
right.
Blue Chew.
Blue Chew. BlueChew.com, folks. You go get a bottle of Blue Chew, and you won't have to worry about being soft on anything from now on.
Nope. Even if you don't want to be, you will feel the effects of it, and you too will be hard on virtually every project that you have.
That's right. So to close this portion of the rundown, let's just say good night to Damon Lindelof and all the ships at sea.
Let's say good night to Damon Lindelof, and let's say good morning. Good morrow.
Good Lord. I'm going to say good Lord to that transition.
That transition was awesome, and you know it.
My God. You think everything needs a transition when you could just say, the rundown is a list of items. Well, next up, but you have to make everything into this complicated ass transition.
There was nothing complicated about it. It was just a good transition.
Good's a strong word.
Loki has been confirmed by Disney CEO Bob Iger to be getting a limited spin-off series in development for Disney's upcoming streaming service, which shall be known as Disney Plus.
Yes.
The new streaming service, we've already heard the rumors of a Scarlet Witch show, a Winter Soldier and Falcon show.
Neither of those were officially confirmed, by the way. The only one that got official confirmation today or in this week was Loki. So
Yes, that's exactly how I was going to end that sentence before you interrupted it halfway through.
Oh, you would never interrupt me, so I don't know why we have to,
I've never interrupted you. Except that one time when you were mid-coitus.
Mm.
In any event.
You didn't interrupt that time. You just silently stood in the corner and cried and masturbated.
Well, that's what I do most of the time when I'm not on this show.
Crying in the corner and masturbating?
Yes.
Mm.
You should see my wallpaper.
No wonder you didn't like Clerks 2. I guess it hit a little too close to home for you.
Oh, gosh. I can't even continue this joke now. You've ruined it with that unfunny piece of garbage movie. Anyway, while I'm saying more things that will alienate me from Place to Be Nation, let me.
But it'll ingratiate you with Todd,
That's true. Todd and I share that. I forgot that Todd also doesn't like Clerks 2. That's good. It's a good thing. We can share in our bitterness towards it.
Why are you bitter
Loki
towards
getting
it?
a TV show. That's good stuff, Nick.
Yeah, I am excited about that. I'm excited we'll see more Tom Hiddleston. I was fairly confident that Infinity War was going to be the end for that character. I wonder if this might not be a prequel.
Prequel, that's what I'm thinking.
Possible.
I think it almost has to be.
Yeah. Because I don't want them to undo that death. That death was pretty
No.
impactful for Thor as a character. It felt like a fitting end for Loki, even though it happened. I know it's weird to say, given the fact that it happened 5 minutes into the movie or whatever. But felt like it had been built to. I don't really want them to go back on that.
Perhaps since it's a limited series, they could tell the story about how the bridge between Thor: The Dark World and Ragnarok, or even in those moments in Thor: The Dark World, how Loki took over for Odin.
Although, I guess if you wanted to tell do a take on Asgardian Resurrection, which is, kind of a big deal in the comics, kind of a staple, you could go with that route of a new Loki who is unburdened by past experiences.
Or even Loki's initial... well, they're not going to have Thanos on the limited series, probably.
No.
But I was thinking about how Loki came into service of Thanos in...
that would be interesting for sure.
Avengers.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, that would clearly be good.
Yeah. Another character that has clearly had a part in intergalactic comic book sagas over the years is the unlikeliest of characters, perhaps, the Psycho Pirate. A character who has had a fairly significant role in multiple crisis-level events in DC Comics. Well, he is, appropriately enough, being brought into the upcoming CW Elseworlds crossover, as Bob Fraser has been cast as Roger Hayden, a.k.a. the Psycho Pirate. He is currently scheduled to appear in the Flash and Supergirl episodes of the crossover as an inmate of Arkham Asylum, which is where Jeremy Davies' Dr. John Deegan works. And, of course, Psycho Pirate in the comics, has a mask that allows him to manipulate people's emotions. I always thought that was a really, really cool power.
And, perhaps most importantly, at least for our own personal theory that we've advanced on the show, he played a major role in Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think this is another example, much like the Monitor, of setting up dominoes that will not fall until next season's crossover.
Yes, probably until fall of 2019.
Right.
And then the sky is the limit. The red sky is the limit, Nick. Now that we're getting the Monitor in play, we're getting the Psycho Pirate in play. We need perhaps Lila's Harbinger is going to be in play at some point. Lila Michaels. So I
would assume an alternate Earth version of Lila will end up being the Harbinger, the actual Harbinger. Right.
And so there's a lot coming into play here in the CW universe, and it's all exciting. The current seasons are largely delivering, but more importantly, long term, they're building towards something, and it feels like it's major. And honestly, it reminds me, Nick, in a lot of ways of the feeling that we had building towards that first Avengers movie, where there's these years of individual compelling shows or products that are kind of building towards this one moment in time. Like for years, we're actually building towards Infinity War, really, from the first Avengers movie. That's really what it feels like. And now it feels like we're pushing towards this. And it's a pretty cool feeling to have for a TV show. Or TV universe.
Yeah, it really is. I hope it winds up happening. We're going to look like fools if a crisis never happens in the CW, but I have to believe it's coming at some point.
Right, absolutely. I think so anyway. We'll see. Let's go over here to the rapidly diminishing corner of the L-shaped studio, Nick, that we call the DC...
the Worlds of DC
the
corner.
Worlds of DC EU corner. Because a longtime favorite, fan favorite actor, Ewan McGregor, of course, portrayed Obi-Wan Kenobi in the Star Wars prequels, has been cast as Birds of Prey's Black Mask, who will be the villain of the Birds of Prey film. Anyone that's a big fan of Batman knows about Black Mask. If you don't, check out the War Games era of Batman comics for a lot of Black Mask related stories. Great casting here, Nick, for this character. I mean, Ewan McGregor's a hell of an actor. Black Mask is a great character with a lot of charisma. So I think they did well by casting a charismatic actor to play him.
Yeah, this makes me far more excited for the Birds of Prey project than I had been previously. Not to say I know David Ayer's probably not going to do it, so it was likely going to be better than Suicide Squad, but I've made no secret of the fact that I am skeptical of DC's entire cinematic strategy at this point and have no real faith in them. But Ewan McGregor coming on board gives me some hope for this project. So I'm all on board. Let's we'll see what comes of it.
Yes, and another comic book property that is getting a sequel is Kingsman. Kingsman 2 was a success at the theaters, and we are getting a Kingsman 3, but it's going to be without its lead star. Taron Egerton confirmed to Yahoo that he will not be returning for the film's upcoming second sequel, but that he is not done playing Eggsy. He says that it doesn't mean he's not in Kingsman ever again. He talks closely with Matthew Vaughn, the director. They're still very much in business together, but the next Kingsman movie doesn't involve Eggsy. So sounds like it could be a prequel Kingsman movie, or one that focuses on the U.S.-based Kingsman that we saw in the second movie that I know you still haven't seen, Nick. But interesting developments here, and probably particularly compelling to you, Nick, because I know Eggsy wasn't even your favorite part of the first Kingsman movie.
No, by far it was Colin Firth's character. But, you know, I didn't dislike Eggsy. I just think it's interesting here. I've read a theory online that means that Kingsman 3 may be a prequel, or perhaps a movie that takes place many years after the events of Kingsman 2. They may kind of tell more of a spin-off story than necessarily a true Kingsman 3 as the next film. Right.
Yes, they upped the mythos by the introduction of the U.S. Kingsman with Jeff Bridges' character. So certainly a lot of potential there. Well, earlier in the episode, Nick, the HTF episode, that is, you were talking about the ongoing Wolverine podcast series, and well, it's getting a sequel, as you referenced earlier. The second season is called Wolverine: The Lost Trail, and it'll be a 10-episode season available exclusively on Stitcher Premium starting in the winter of 2019. It will later get wide release across all podcast platforms. And I'm trying to get down here. It'll be a, quote, epic quest that takes place in the Louisiana Bayou.
That's a little disappointing. I don't want to. Are you going to listen to that Wolverine podcast?
Not anytime soon.
Well, the first season ends where they pretty much say, "Hey, we're going to Japan now," and like I was hoping the next season would take place in Japan, and clearly that's not going to happen.
I have 2 words. I have 2 words that I think would change your mind on that, Nick.
What's that?
Thieves Guild.
Go ahead.
You see, Wolverine's going to be encountering the Thieves Guild of New Orleans, mon ami.
Mm-hmm.
And that can only mean that Gambit not far behind.
Mm-hmm.
Your thoughts?
Oh, I'm all for some Gambit. The synopsis also mentions a Jason Wingard that I know nothing about, but I know he's an X-Men character. What's his gimmick?
Jason Wingard. Oh, my. I'm so glad that you mentioned Jason Wingard to me. I mean, Jason Wingard, you might remember mostly from his nickname Mastermind.
Oh, okay. Cool.
He's a telepathic. He can create illusions. He can manipulate people's. You know, he had a big role to do with the manipulation of Jean Grey during the whole Phoenix era. If you remember on the cartoon, he convinced Jean that she was in love with him. You know, so.
Yes,
you probably don't remember that. But
no, I remember that, yeah.
Nonetheless, it happened. So, anyway, that's Jason Wingard, Mastermind.
Cool.
Perhaps the Hellfire Club will be involved with the Thieves Guild.
Yeah, I'm down for this. This is, like I said, I wish that they were following through on the promise of Japan from the ending of Season 1, but all things considered, can't complain about getting more of this. I am excited about Wolverine taking on a more active role in the story. And the synopsis they put out sounded pretty good, like him on the trail of his former lover who has disappeared.
That's right. Well, Nick, I can't help but notice that my voice is about gone, but there's a minute on the clock. What does that mean?
Well, that means it's time for the the Sports Entertainment Minute.
That's right. Now, Nick, I'm way behind on wrestling stuff.
Me
so
too.
I haven't watched anything.
I didn't watch SmackDown, so I watched the Raw. It was pretty good. You know, the UK Raws are always interesting. You got a pretty good Drew McIntyre, Kurt Angle main event that saw a rare example of a heel beating a babyface with their own finisher.
Ooh,
which hardly ever happens.
No, I don't know.
In
I
modern
can't remember
WWE.
any offhand.
You also got a Nia Jax heel turn, which is a little interesting. You got advancement of the Seth Rollins Dean Ambrose storyline by having them drop the tag titles. So you got a few interesting things going on, but more concerning actually is a report I read while I was doing this podcast with you that Jim Ross's WWE contract expires in March of 2019. The two parties will not be coming to another agreement, but as a result of that, because his Access deal expires in November of this year, WWE is not going to allow him to re-sign a new Access deal until his current WWE deal is over.
Oh.
So there's going to be a 5-month gap where we will not have JR on Access on New Japan Television.
That is some doo-doo, is it not?
That's some doo-doo shit.
That is some bitter doo-doo shit.
Which means no Wrestle Kingdom for JR. Probably.
Oh, that's some bullshit. He was looking so forward to that.
Yep.
He talked about that on his podcast when he had Kevin Kelly on about how he was really hopeful to do Wrestle Kingdom live this year.
Nope.
Man, that's a big beast.
In all likelihood, unless things change.
Yeah,
that's based on the one report I read. So,
man, that would be some doo-doo shit, some fuck shit junk.
I think we've largely gotten to the point of using fuck shit junk as a positive term. So I think we're gonna keep doo-doo shit as the negative.
Okay, doo-doo shit will stay negative then. Mm-hmm. Well, that's a big disappointment, Nick. And I hate. If Mr. Ross were right now, I would tell him that.
Well, I know he's very depressed right now, and I think the only way to end this episode is by letting him talk about something that cheers him up, that makes him happy. And I know You know, he's feeling bad about New Japan's situation, so he may not give us as much this week as he's given us in the past, but I feel a little bit of this will do well to lift his spirits. So, as we have done here for a little while now, enjoy the closing of this episode and some musical stylings from Jim Ross as he takes us back to the, oh God, when was this song released? I don't even know. I want to say
the early 90s.
The early 90s. And he's going to talk about his love of a certain part of the female anatomy. Good old JR, take it away.
Well, once again, I want to thank you. I want to thank my sponsors, Casper Mattress, Blue Chew, 1-800-Flowers. You know, I think everybody's done a good job of helping me through this tough time. And regardless of my contract situation, folks, there's one thing about me that I think is understood, that has been understood by others, and should be understood by all of you, dating back to my time in Mid-South Wrestling. You know, I first heard this song, I was on a road trip with the Z-Man Tom Zink, Hacksaw Butch Reed, Ron Simmons, former Heisman Trophy finalist, and referee Tommy Young. And this song would come on the radio, and boy, we would just have a ball singing it. So, without any further ado, here goes nothing. I've been a little bit under the weather this week, so bear with me a little bit.
Oh my God. Becky, look at her butt. It's so big. She looks like one of those rap guys' girlfriends. But, you know, who understands those rap guys? They only talk to her because she looks like a total prostitute, okay? I mean, her butt is just so big. I can't believe it's just so round. It's just like out there. I mean, gross. Look, she's just so big.
I like big butts, and I cannot lie. You other brothers cannot deny that when a girl walks in with an itty-bitty waist and a round thing in your face, you get sprung. Want to pull up tough, because you notice that butt was stuffed. Deep in the jeans she's wearing, I'm hooked and I can't stop staring. Oh, baby, I want to get with you and take your picture. My homeboys tried to warn me, but with that butt you got makes me so horny. Oh, Rumpo Smooth Skin. You say you want to get in my bins? Well, use me, because you ain't that average groupie. I seen her dancing, to hell with romancing. She sweat, wet, got it going like a turbo vet. I am tired of magazines saying flat butts are the thing. Take the average black man and ask him that she got a pack much back. So fellas, yeah, has your girlfriend got the butt? Hell yeah. Tell them to shake it. Shake it. Shake it. Shake it. Shake that healthy butt. Baby has got back. LA fits with the Oakland booty. Baby has got back. LA fits with the Oakland booty. I like them round and big. Most importantly, big. And when I'm throwing a gig, like the butcher, I can't help myself. I'm acting like an animal. Now here's my scandal. I want you to get home, and I want to get you home, and double up. I ain't talking about Playboy, because silicone parts are made for toys. Just ask Terry Runnels. I want them real thick and juicy, so find that juicy double. Mix-a-lot's in trouble, begging for a piece of that bubble, so I'm looking at Rock videos. Namely, The Rock versus Stone Cold Steve Austin, WrestleManias 15, 17, and 19. Knock-kneed billows walking like hoes. You can have them bimbos. I'll keep my women like Flojo. A word to the thick soul sisters, I want to get with you. I won't cuss or hit you, but I gotta be straight when I say that I want to fuck. till the break of dawn. Baby got it going on. A lot of simps won't like this song because them punks like to hit it and quit it. And I'd rather stay and play because I'm long and I'm strong. And I'm down to get the friction on. So ladies, oh yeah. Ladies, yeah. If you want to roll in my Mercedes, oh yeah. Then turn around, stick it out. Even white boys got to shout. Baby's got back. Baby's got back. Yes, baby, when it comes to females, Cosmo ain't got nothing to deal with my selection. 36, 24, 36. Ha ha. Only if she's 5'3". So your girlfriend rolls a Honda, playing workout tapes by Fonda, but Fonda ain't got no motor in the back of her Honda. My Anaconda doesn't want any unless you've got buns, hun. You can do side bends or sit-ups, but please don't lose that butt. Some brothers want to play that hard role and tell you that the ass ain't gold, so they toss it and leave it, and I pull up quick to retrieve it. So Cosmo says you're fat. Well, I ain't down with that, because your waist is small and your curves are kicking, and I'm thinking about sticking to the beanpole dames in the magazines. You ain't it, Miss Thing. Give me a sister, I can't resist her. Red beans and rice, did not miss her. Some knucklehead tried to diss, 'cause his girls are on my list. He had game, but he chose to hit 'em, and I pull up quick to get with 'em. So ladies, if the butt is round, and you want a XXX throwdown, dial 1-900-JR's BBQ, and kick them nasty thoughts. Baby got back. Baby got back.
We hope you have enjoyed the Hard-Traveling Fanboys episode 134. For more great podcast content, go to placetobenation.com.